Are are we live? Yeah. Okay. We're live. We're live. For a second there, my iPad was not showing that we were live. It took a second. Today we have a fun podcast. I say that every single time because every single podcast that I do is fun for me, whether it is for me or not for you. I don't know. Anyway, we got a great episode. We're gonna be talking with Carter Simoneaux.
You got it.
All right. I was like, wait. I didn't even try to pronounce his last name. I'm always butchering last names, and I'm good at that. So we're going to be talking about his company. It's AcadianaCasts Network, and it is a podcast network. And you're going to see a clip or two, or maybe just one, but we're going to lead you to the website so you can see more and all that good stuff. We're going to be talking about all the podcasts that they have under the network, including ourselves. So that's fun. And yeah, so stick around. You're listening to the T. All right, Carter. So welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here.
All right. Look, I'm glad to have you because you've helped me out a lot. There was a point in time when I had horrible sound quality. And I remember going to lunch with you, and you were like, "Hey, man, I don't know if you knew this, but like, you can improve your sound quality or something because it doesn't sound good." I'm like, Carter, I know, I know it doesn't sound good. I have one mic, and I'm trying to make that mic work for up to 4 people, and it doesn't work. So, and then I told you that I was looking into getting some mics, and it just so happened that I had some T-shirt money that we made from doing T-shirt sales throughout the year, and you kind of, I think you're the one turned me on to Rode, and even
Yeah.
though you didn't even have any Rode mics for yourself.
No, I did not. I was using a Shure SM7B, really nice microphone. But you're the one who was the catalyst for me getting these mics in the AcadianaCasts studios. But I told you about the Rodecaster, and that's actually my first one that I bought that you're using. And I know we did trade. You made our beautiful website AcadianaCasts.com. Some more updates are coming very soon to it, but it looks great, and so I'm fine with you using this. I got another one, it really does improve the quality for a relatively affordable price if you have some cash to put it up.
See, the more you know. If you want to improve your podcast or whatever you're using to record audio, you might want to get some mics and a, what do you call this? A board?
Yeah, mixer.
A mixer, yeah. The official
Well,
name.
I would say the ultimate way to improve your podcast is by going to AcadianaCasts.com and reaching me, and then we can help you facilitate your podcast dreams.
Yes, there you go. That's the plug that we're looking for. All right. So, man, I want to know kind of what was the aha moment, the beginning portion of like how you came up with AcadianaCast and why you thought it was needed.
Well, I was working at the time for News 15. Love all those folks over there. They do a really good job. But it was in the middle of the pandemic, and every morning waking up at 3 o'clock and then going to do a 4-hour show, 5 to 9, and just waking up and talking to everybody about how the world's coming to an end and how their day's going to suck. And,
Yeah.
and it was killing me, especially in a community like a Southwest Louisiana, South Louisiana in general. There are people who are career driven and they want to work hard, but for a large part, people work here as a means to an end. The end being having time to celebrate with friends and family and having crawfish boils and going out on the boat and just enjoying the joie de vivre, right?
Yeah.
And I thought there was I had to been a better way to communicate. And also, we're covering these stories. Like, let's say there's like a big shooting somewhere, or big government cultural war thing. With the whole library drag queen storytime thing. And as a reporter, you have maybe like an hour, a minute and a half to tell the whole story, and you lose context there. And the local news will always be important, especially people who are routine oriented. They wake up in the morning, they want to know if their kids are going to get wet going to school that day, if there's any traffic, and then like the big major stories. So it's a nice boom, 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 kind of a good wide net of what's going on in your area. But for certain topics, I think that they just need they need more context. They need to be fledged out more, just a longer form storytelling or information. And, in a society where we're so instant gratification, our attention spans are so small, I think human beings actually crave long form conversation. You swipe it on TikTok, you maybe watch for 30 seconds or whatever. It's nice to be able to sit down. I mean, it's why people like, Joe Rogan are so successful.
Yeah.
It's because he sits down and talks with people with empathy and just has like a long form and just fledges out multiple different things. And you really get to kind of peel the curtain behind certain people and kind of understand where they're coming from. Also, if you're a news anchor or whatever, everyone has their biases, right? But you have to act like you're down the middle or whatnot. But the truth is people are not. And these giant corporations who own a lot of these local media companies, we were owned by NBC and Fox. And so the first 2 hours were kind of like the Fox lean of things. And the second 2 hours were kind of the NBC lean of things, at least from like a national standpoint. And the truth was somewhere in the middle. I got tired of saying things that I did not write.
Okay.
I didn't like words coming out of my mouth that weren't my own. And so at a certain point, I thought like maybe I'll just like host a podcast. And then I was thinking like, there's so many people, everyone and their mother wants to make a podcast nowadays, whether it's an individual, a group of friends, some partners, or a business. Businesses are getting more into podcasts as a marketing strategy. But people don't have the know-how to do so. So I thought like, what if we create just a new media platform where folks, if they have something to say, they want something to say, they want to have their voice heard, they can do so via podcast, and we'll teach you how to do it, and we'll help you wherever you are in the podcast process. If you need like a full studio, we got that for you. If you just need help producing your show and segmenting things and just making it a tighter, more professional sounding product, we can do that. If you just need marketing or you just want to be a part of the network, that's kind of like where you lie in. You have your own setup, you have your own toys, but you are part of the AcadianaCasts Network. And so anyone who goes to find any sort of podcast, ideally in the future, we only have 4 right now, but you go to the site and you can see like, oh, okay, I like that food podcast. Oh, what's this? The tea. Oh, okay, let me check this out. And I thought that's a developing Lafayette guy. And so it's just a way to just find information and entertainment in a different way.
Yeah, no, look, I love that. And I know you had kind of told me a little bit about the origin stories, but it was more of like a summarized version. I didn't realize it was stemming from your work in broadcast. And the fact that you didn't like the words that you were saying that were not your own, that's actually a good reason to want to start a podcast or even a network of that sort to kind of help people bring their voice to.
Yeah, and in News 15, they're the smaller station, they're the newest one out of the 3, KLFY and KTC. And so News 15 doesn't really have this problem as much, but you go on like Facebook and you go through like KTC comment section. It's a cesspool, and it's just not a healthy way to communicate. And I feel like through podcasting, because a lot of what people are arguing about, they're not even reading the article or watching the thing. They're just reading like a headline.
It's always the headline.
Yeah, and it just puts people in a stir. And I think podcasting, especially like the past few years with the division that is rampant across this country, I think in a tight-knit community like Lafayette, like Acadiana, having civil discourse, like we have a guy. His name's Scott J. Davis. He hosts a show called Lord Scott Davis, I should say. Hosts a show called Unwoken. He says he's the #1 show for young conservatives. That's his facts.
That's always what he says.
But conversely, we have a guy, Manny J. Brockovich, who got
polar opposite.
Yeah, got arrested at the library for protesting the protesting people trying to protest the drag queen story time and banning certain books and whatnot. And so he's a former private investigator, but definitely a left-wing guy. And so I didn't want to come out the gate with just left-wing or just right-wing. I want to be labeled. I want to be a free speech platform. And I think just having a platform and a network where people can have these civil discourses in a healthy way will show that we're more similar than we are different. And I think conversations that you can have via, as long as you want on a podcast, are good for that.
Yeah. So real quick, I want to let people know that are watching that if you have a question or if you want to make a comment, feel free to make the comment. We're watching them. And you can also see that we dropped a little banner that you say, you can feel free to comment. So if you have a question for Carter or myself, you're
Send
free
them
to-
in.
Yeah,
I know my dad's watching right now.
that's awesome. So yeah, so it's funny to watch Scott, who's the conservative side, and then to listen to Maddie because he doesn't have video yet. Maddie does.
No, he doesn't. But he's about to start getting into that. But yeah, Matty right now is just audio, but he just did like a series of investigations into Josh Guillory,
Oh God, always look,
Mayor Josh Guillory,
Mayor President,
Mayor President Josh Guillory. Sorry,
get it right.
I was covering consolidated government for like 3 years. I should have known better.
Oh man, it is confusing, I guess, in a normal speech to say that, but yeah. So it's fun to listen and to watch the two different personalities, and they are extremely different. So much so that I would love to see them in one room on and like talking together and to see kind of what that discourse would look like.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I would have to facilitate it. I have to moderate essentially.
You'd have to be a moderator,
so
right?
that was kind of the plans. And then they just kind of went back and forth on social media, and so now I think they have each other blocked on social media.
Really?
Yeah. That's a whole thing. I don't want to get too much into it, but hopefully soon we can get them civil enough with each other to sit down and. But with like social media, it's just words on a digital paper, right? And so you lose that context, and that's why I love just human conversation.
Yeah. So so just in case you're watching and you're trying to follow along, let me show you what the AcadianaCasts website looks like. I did have a very large hand in creating the website, and it's still not like 100% perfect, but
Yeah, I was just talking to a photographer last night, and we're gonna go out and get some shots around Acadiana. Some really beautiful shots because right now they're all like stock photos, right? But I definitely wanted to have that Acadiana feel, but with like a kind of a new age modern twist to it. Like whenever the guy who made all of our logos and our branding, his name's Dylan Fall from Crowley. We were fraternity brothers at UL. Lives in Denver now, but when we were talking about the design of everything, we both came to the conclusion that we don't want anything like EAUX in it or like fleur-de-lis or those things that are just like overdone when it comes to Louisiana type branding. And so the logo is the castle from the Acadiana flag, with the negative space is a microphone, and then the left and the right are an A and a C. And so it's kind of like one of those, that's cool. So and with kind of like the Acadiana colors of the flag as well, integrated into all of our different logos. We got all kind of different styles and whatnot that we use. But I really like how it came out, and I just like the Acadiana feel, but with some subtle modernness to it.
Yeah. So so just so that everybody can see where you can go, if you want to watch or listen to one of the podcasts, you can go to the AcadianaCast.com website, and then what you want to do is you want to click Podcast Partners, and you'll see I have Free Maddie Podcast as the top one because it's probably, both Scott and his are what I would consider radical. But Free Maddie, he's definitely being talked about a lot. He's made some interesting.
He's made some waves.
Footage, yeah. There's footage and conversations out there about the stuff that's happened with this guy, and then we have the Art of Business, which is your podcast, right?
Right.
And then we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then scrolling on down, we have the conservative podcast, the one that Scotty does, and it's called Unwoken. You probably have heard the term woke. It's unwoken because woke is not a good term nowadays. It's been tarnished because woke I think initially started out as a term where you became awake to the issues,
some sort of social injustice.
Yeah, and now
it's
been extremely tarnished.
It's a nasty label.
Yes, and you don't want to be woke. You don't want to be a part of the woke culture apparently. But anyway, and then you have ours on there. It's all the way at the bottom because I don't want to be at the top.
Yeah, but I believe if you go to the main page, the T is like the featured podcast.
Is it? I think I took it off, bro. Let me show it real quick. Hold up.
I don't know if there's like something where like it can like regularly float to like a new one.
Okay,
but
so when you go to the main page, it's got your logo real big, and then there's informational. It says be heard, you got free speech, it's local, it's independent, and profitable. We'll talk about that. Innovative, and then you scroll down to have start your podcast, have an established podcast question mark, and then at the bottom start your podcast. I took mine off the main page. I because
I haven't looked
I
at the
felt
site.
bad. I was like, I'm not trying to promote myself.
Oh, it's all good. No, like you're one of our. You have every right to be featured as the other three.
Okay, so let's talk about your podcast, the art of business. Obviously, talking about business. I've watched a few clips that you have, and I think some of them are music related guests and all that good stuff. Tell us a little bit about the podcast that you have.
Yeah, so the Art of Business is an initiative through the Upper Lafayette Economic Development Foundation and Love of People nonprofit. John Williams is the executive director for both, and what the initiative really is, it's kind of in pairing with the Blue Monday mission, which was originally created to help aging creatives with offset medical costs, find them stage time, things like that. But the Art of Business is a way to help the next generation of creatives, because let's say, back in the day, I'll use like Lee Alenzino, for example, and he wouldn't mind me saying this, a fantastic bass player. One of the, you've heard his bass lines in so many different classic Acadiana songs. He was a bass player for Buckwheat Zydeco. But he went on the road as a musician at like 14 years old. And there was no knowledge about like saving money or not, just living gig to gig for so many years. And so when it gets time to get into your elder years and you don't have that piggy bank really from living this life that a creative lives, it can get frustrating and really difficult. So the Art of Business is to kind of inject business acumen into the creative economy. Look, if you want to follow your passions, your dreams, and be an artist, that's all well and good, but you got to treat it like anything else, a business. And so far, the first few episodes, it's mostly musicians that we've talked to.
Well, because you're a musician yourself.
Right, and I'm involved in the music community, and I've got so many different people that I know that I just want to talk to. Like we've had like Yvette Landry, we've had the great Steve Adams, drummer, Gino Viacio, he's a great drummer and singer from around here. But Ken Veron, the owner of Cafe Vermilionville, but he's a musician himself and does live music. So we also talked to him about like what it's like as like a sound guy and as a musician compared to as the venue owner. And there's certain things that he talked about that I didn't understand that. I play cover music and I go to all these like the Tex-Mex tour, right?
Right.
The Agaves, the El Pasos, and all of those places have to have a license for you to be able to play cover music, because instead of like these artists and these companies coming after each individual person, because that'd be impossible. So
It's a copyright issue.
Yeah, they pay a license for your right to play whatever you want.
Okay, I did not even think that was a thing. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm. And so they have that for not just live music, but they have a different license for stuff that they play like in-house, just like on like.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they have like Sirius or Sirius XM playing, you have to have a business license,
right?
Because you're basically allowing everybody that's a guest in your establishment to hear music for free. And I think you pay considerably more for that business account than like a personal account.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so the Art of Business. So one of the guests you've had on was playing a harmonica, and I loved it because I did not realize that you play harmonica and you use your little tongue to stop little holes. That was
tongue
cool.
blocking.
Yeah, tongue blocking.
Yeah, Grant Dermody. He's from Seattle, Washington originally, but he has toured the country, all the different types of blues scenes from Chicago to Delta blues, Louisiana blues. And he really found solace and home here in Lafayette. And he has an upcoming harmonica summit in Sunset where like world-class harmonica instructors are going to come.
A harmonica summit.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's also like if you're a guitar player or mandolin or fiddle, they'll have people there, or a bass player to kind of teach you, like make the next step in your playing and whatnot. And each night ends with they have a band playing live music and people can go dance and have a great time. So that's coming up in the end of October. You can go, if you're interested in that at all, Blown Away on the Bayou. At the Bayou? I think it's on the Bayou. Blown Away on the Bayou. And they have a Facebook page, Instagram. But yeah, he really gave some really cool information. He's a hell of a harmonica player too.
Yeah. Okay, so for those that are watching, if they're trying to figure out, let's say they want to start a podcast and they're listening to this and they're like, okay, we're obviously talking about all the podcasts you have on already. What if they want to create one for themselves? What would they need to do? I mean, they don't have their own. Chances are they don't have their own equipment. They probably have a phone, and that's probably a good start. But what would somebody need to do to even get started?
Are you talking about within starting a relationship with
with
us?
With the AcadianaCasts.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's say somebody's watching right now and says, "Man, I have a good idea for a podcast." You have the liberal, you have the conservative. I want to be the centrist or whatever. Let's say there's a middle ground.
The libertarian.
The libertarian, yes.
The Ron Swanson podcast.
Gosh. So let's say somebody wants to do that.
So what I would say to them is that they first initially reach out, and on our page there's a section where the contact where you can kind of just give a brief little explanation about like what you think your show would be about. Then we would have a meeting, and we would kind of flesh it out a little more, kind of see what you're envisioning, and then I kind of take the knowledge that I have as far as producing and podcasting and try and figure out the best way to do that. Are you going to do it weekly? Are you going to do it monthly? Like, how often do you want to do it? We figure out all of these things, and then when we're ready to go, we'll help you along the way, and we'll give you basically like a 7-episode run for free, where we're growing your show. And then if we both want to continue with this, then we'll figure out a contract and we'll just make it consistent. But those 7 episodes are, I believe you're the one who told me that's typically where you either find your audience or you give up, because I think 7 episodes is what, like for a listener, it's whether they'll give you 7 tries before they either like you or don't.
I think it's I read somewhere it was
on average
7, yeah, and whether that be for the listener or for yourself. I mean, because I would think after 7 episodes, if you don't have a single listener, you're gonna lose steam. You're like, well, why am I even doing this?
Exactly.
And a lot of people probably assume that podcasters make a lot of money. Well, let me tell you.
So there are ways to monetize and make money, and we're working out a program right now that's in the works. Can't get too much into it on air, but because podcast advertising is substantially cheaper than traditional media, and the ROI as for your business is higher. I think it's like something close to like 65% of podcast listeners have bought something they've heard from a podcast ad, because there's that transparency. The host, and so whenever they're telling you an ad and they're talking about how they like it, you kind of you trust them, you believe it, and so and it doesn't also always feel like an ad. Obviously, it's an advertisement, but it's also like more conversational. Oftentimes, whenever you're doing these ads, and it's coming from a voice that you trust. So there are ways to make money, and also because we're AcadianaCasts, and we're hyper local, or at least try to be. That allows for like smaller mom and pop businesses to like kind of get their name out there and affordable advertising to get on some of these podcasts and throw a few bucks here and there. And you can, that's another reason why I wanted to make it a network. Because during the pandemic, at a drop of a hat, the government can decide that you're gonna be locked in your house for however long.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's got to be a way for people to be a little more autonomous from home in creative works. And podcasting absolutely blew up in 2020. They were already on an upward project,
like you said, trapped in their house, and like I need to talk.
Yeah,
I don't have anybody to talk to.
And so it would be difficult. It would take a lot of hard work for someone to make podcasting their entire living. But it can be a nice little side hustle for you locally. Yeah.
Speaking of ads, we are going to get our ads in right now. So you already know the Music Academy of Acadiana, Acadiana's top choice for music lessons and learning music. So if you're a beginner, if you're young, if you're a pro and you're old, whatever that looks like for you, or vice versa, you can check out the Music Academy and learn another instrument. Let's say you already something. Let's say you want to learn something new. They teach students of all ages and styles. They got drums, guitar, voice, piano, violin, saxophone, flute, and they even do audio production lessons as well. They have an in-house award-winning studio that they record many different local musicians, and some of them are blowing up. And so that's really cool. They're founded locally by Tim Benson, who is a UL Lafayette music school graduate. And the Academy has been voted as a top finalist in several different local, national, and local, national, and local awards. So yeah, check them out. Their goal is to make music lessons fun, educational, and to help foster the next generation of musicians and creative thinkers. Because music fosters creativity. You're listening to music when you're doing something fun, and or if you're creating something, or if you're an artist, you're listening to music. And if you're not, and it's just really quiet, I'm going to worry about your mental state. Anyway,
It's great. It's great for brain development for children too.
exactly. There you go. So check them out. Their website is musicacademyacadiana.com, and they're on Facebook, Instagram, all those places. And then we have The Orchard, who is Acadiana's only Apple authorized service provider, and they are locally owned as well. They helped us last year whenever our iPad mini generation 1 crapped out on us. Like I had to borrow one of my guests' phone to start the show because I didn't have a way to do it. And so we use all Apple products here to run the show because that's what the software uses. So the Orchard, they'll help you repair or replace any of the devices you have the Apple way. They follow a strict Apple guidelines, so they check all the boxes, and they also do warranty repairs, and they also offer in-home and in-office networking solutions. So check them out. Their website is theorchardstores.com. They have 2 locations in Acadiana, one by Buffalo Wild Wings in Lafayette, and then one in Karen Crow by Super One Foods, and they just opened one up in New Orleans. So with that, we appreciate our sponsors.
So I got a cracked screen, so I could go to the Orchard and get it fixed.
Yeah. Now you might, depending on if it's in or out of warranty, you might have to pay out of pocket, but I can't be that determining factor.
I think it might be under warranty.
You might be. If it's definitely within a year, you're good.
Okay.
But if you're not,
Well, I dropped my phone in the ocean in Key West last summer and had to get a new phone in Key West to get home. So that might be past the year date. I don't know if I got 2 year, but I'll go talk to the Orchard.
Go talk to the Orchard. They'll run your serial number and all that good stuff. So yeah, speaking of ads, there you go. That's our sponsors. And if you're looking to start a podcast, that's kind of how you would do it. You'd kind of find a point in the podcast, either beginning or pre-roll or mid-roll, that is, to do it. So going back to the model of AcadianaCasts and kind of how people get started, what do you guys do on top of helping them get started? It's like, do you provide mics, or do you already have mics? Do you have a studio? Do they have to come to you? Do you go to them? What does that look like for people?
So we're still kind of working all that out. For now, we do have a fully fledged podcast studio, mics, sound, lights, cameras, all of it. So if you want to have it on YouTube as well, you can do that. If you just want to record just to make clips but keep everything audio, that's fine as well. However, all of the equipment that I've purchased is mobile. So theoretically, if the situation is right, we could relocate to record your show as well.
Oh man, okay. So that's actually really cool because somebody doesn't even have to have their own equipment. They can just but like, okay. So after 7 episodes that you mentioned, let's say they want to continue the podcast. Let's say it's starting to work. Let's say they have like 10 listeners, but those are dedicated listeners, and they want to continue the podcast and all that good stuff. What happens? What does that look like after the 7th episode? Are you charging? Like, is there a rental fee? Is there what does that look like?
So, because we're so new and everyone so far under the network has been grandfathered in just so we can launch with, 4 really tight shows. We haven't dove too much into that, but it would most likely be if you are recording at the studio, then you're paying for studio time for a producer. If you need it edited, that can goes into it as well. But if you are if you're remote and you have all your tools already, then we would probably just charge you just a monthly small fee to just be placed on the website and allow us to promote you, whatever. Like we'll have different packages depending on your needs, and we'll probably also get into some sort of partnership agreement when it comes to sponsors, where we're about to start bringing a bunch of businesses to be placed on all kind of different podcasts. We want to give these businesses different opportunities, different markets that they can essentially tap into. And so, we'll create some sort of deal where, any sponsors that we bring in, we'll have a share of it. and depending on, I guess, your listeners or your how much people you're bringing in, because that's what sponsors are paying for. They're not paying for your show; they're paying for listeners.
Yeah.
That's what we're selling to them is listeners.
Now, if they pay for your show, I mean, out of their generosity, that'd be so awesome.
So that's also. I mean, I'm glad you said they have 10 engaged and passionate listeners. You can probably have like 300 just really dedicated listeners, like for each episode, and you can do things like Patreon, and people will support you. Just like $5 a month, and then if you have 300 people giving you $5 a month, I mean, you can elevate your show. You can get better guests. You can get better equipment, and so a little bit of sometimes it is asking, please help me.
Yeah.
But like for example, there's a podcast that I like, comedians Shane Gillis and Matt McClusker, called Shane and Matt's Secret Podcast, and they make really, really just funny content, and they have a Patreon where after the episode's done, they have like an exclusive episode on Patreon, but you got to pay for it. And so I'm fine paying for content that I really like, because I want them to keep doing it and give me the content that I like. And I think more and more people are getting into that. People are getting okay with paying for just the stuff that they like. I mean, that's kind of the same thing with like the cable cutting, cord cutting generation. I'm fine with just what Netflix gives me, and then like maybe some rabbit ears, like a digital antenna. I'm going to, all I care about is DC and Game of Thrones. So I'm going to go to HBO Max, and people are just now more and more picking out the content that they want.
Yeah.
And I think podcasts are no different.
Instead of just having like one broad network, or not say network, but like a group of networks put together for one price. I mean,
right. If it's like if you have like DirecTV or cable, like how many of those channels are you actually using?
Probably 3.
Right. I think we'll get to the point, and we're always almost there, where if you just want like CBS, Fox, NBC, for news and football, and then add in like Comedy Central or FX, those are 5 channels that I want to watch. I think that you'll be able to just pick those and pay those networks exclusively. But I don't know how that all works. I'm not in the cable business.
Right. So before we get too far, we have about 15 minutes left. I want to show a clip of one of the episodes. Now tell me about the episode real quick. About this clip. Is it The Art of Business?
Mm-hmm, yeah. Okay. So this is from the Art of Business podcast. I interviewed Gino Vicio, like I said earlier, local drummer and singer from Delcombe, Louisiana. Soulful guy, just really cool guy. And also, preface, this was recorded before the studio was complete, so it looks a little dingy in there. But we're doing our best. And
well, yeah, I mean, you're started out this year, so
right, yeah. And so the studio does look a lot nicer now. But I asked Gino if he could describe the pocket for the non-musicians out there. The pocket is what like a bass player and a drummer like find that groove together, right? And so they call it musically, like, if you're in the pocket, like everything's tight sounding and you're just hitting this perfect groove, this perfect rhythm. But I wanted to have a drummer's perspective of what he thought of the pocket, and so this is Gino talking about that.
The pocket is definitely specific to certain styles of music, more like backbeat-based music. And I think to develop a really defined pocket, it's your ability to play the notes in between the dominant notes, if that makes sense. Right? So on drums, if you got something that's like you're hitting, most pocket drumming is like a 2 and 4 kind of thing, So if I'm like boom, ka, ba-boom, boom, ka, boom, ka, ba-boom, boom, ka. If I start filling in with my left hand, right? Putting ghost notes in between there, which is the non-dominant notes, they're lower. It starts to round things off and kind of suck you in a little bit, So it goes from boom, ka, ba-boom, boom, ka, boom, ka, ba-boom, boom, ka, to boom, sa, ba-boom, boom, sa, da-doom, sa, da-doom, da-doom, sa, da-doom, right? You're just kind of giving like some extra umphs.
Yeah, so I just love that explanation, Gino. Like when he said it, like I had to like cut the clip off a little too early just because I cursed in it. And I didn't want to put that because I was like, oh shit, that's cool.
Hey. So why? Wait, so you cut off are you trying to be family friendly?
No, I mean, like on the podcast, like I think I put it like as expletive in case like I drop curse words or whatever. And that one was a very flavorful episode. Gina let it fly a little bit, but when it comes to like marketing and whatnot, I try to be universal. I don't want to put necessarily unless sometimes I'll get Hannah, our our intern. Who does all of our marketing and social media stuff to like put like an NSFW. That's mostly for like Scotty's stuff.
Oh yeah, Scotty for sure. I feel like Manny could probably need it too.
Yeah, Maddie from time to time could use an NSFW, but we were doing like audiograms for Maddie at first to promote his show because he doesn't have video yet. But stats show that audiograms really don't work. They did in 2018. They don't work anymore. But he's going to start doing video, getting into that. And if before he gets into that, he's going to start making just like little small packages, clips of like his episodes, and we'll be able to blast that to internet land.
Dude, all I know is the podcast that you guys have already. It's colorful, in the simplest form. So let's say somebody has a podcast that exists already, because there's a few around town, around the Acadiana area, and with it being called AcadianaCasts, are you trying to cast your net?
Yes.
To capture those people, and how does that look?
Well, there are a couple of established podcasts that I'm trying to get on. There's a
can you name it?
Yeah, so I'm sure they wouldn't mind. We're in talks right now. There's a show called Missing Magnolias. It's a true crime podcast.
Oh, see, that's going to be a good one.
Right, and I think Louisiana leads the nation in unsolved cases, and so there's plenty of material for them to talk about. Another one, I think it's I read an article in the Advocate about I think Roundabout Now. Yeah. So I'm kind of talking with them preliminary, trying to get them involved. But that would mostly for established podcasts. Like I would give like my 2 cents of as far as I think you need better audio or you need to segment your show a little better.
Exactly like you did with me.
Exactly.
Your audio sucks.
Yeah. I was pretty blunt with you, but. Trying to, because I want a certain standard on AcadianaCasts. I don't want just Joe Blow to come on like on his computer and just like or talking to his iPhone and that be the show. Like I want it to be a professional sound and look. And so depending on what you need, we'll figure that out, and there'll be packages for that. But if you have a well-oiled machine type of podcast and you just want to be involved in the network, then like you probably have the smallest price of all. Like if I were to go after Jan Swift, Discover Lafayette, like her podcast kills, and she doesn't need anything.
Yeah.
Really. So
she has her own sponsors and all that stuff now.
Yeah.
I remember when she was
and
first.
Also, before you go on, I want to say if you have a podcast and you have sponsors, like I'm not diving into your sponsors. I'm not taking your sponsor dollars at all.
Good to know.
What I do use is your numbers to incentivize businesses to come support the whole network rather than a single podcast, and so everyone kind of gets a little chunk of the cheese.
Yep.
And some people down the road might be like, well, I'm pulling all the weight for this network and I'm getting this, but we're not there yet. So we'll get to that, those business decisions later on as this thing continues to grow.
So Jan Swift has a great podcast. She interviews a lot of well-established, I guess, leaders in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And myself, I feel like I'm in that same vein, but I tend to target a lot more of the newer businesses,
mm-hmm.
The people that are up and coming, and I try to like see what they're doing. For one, Caroline Merriman with Caroline's Cookies. Like,
great cookies,
dude. Had her on. I'm having her on for a third time in a couple of weeks.
Awesome.
And she requested it. She's like, I want to go back on. I'm like, all right. I'm always game to have the cookie scene.
That's really awesome for her, because I remember when she started the news. I was working for the news and we covered her, and I know she was a little camera shy, but it's good to see as her business grows, like she's coming out of her shell, and I just love to see success stories like that.
Well, going back to Jan Swift, whenever I was just starting my podcast out, and then Jan, I think she had started hers in 2017. I started mine in 2018, so we were about a year apart, or give or take. And she was asking me like, "How do you get sponsors and all that?" I'm like, "I'm just messaging people. Like, I'm telling them what I have, and I tell them how many potential listeners I have. I show them because I started out doing live Facebook videos first before I did audio, as well. And I would just say, I show people the numbers. I mean, the numbers, that's what people want. And so I'm happy to see that I think she's got like a bank. I know there's a bank. I don't know if it's First Horizon or somebody, or maybe Home Bank. Forget who it is, but I think it's First Horizon.
Yeah.
Um,
Former Iberia.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's on its way to be something else. I don't know what that looks like, and I think she has one more. So she has a couple, and I think she has a team at Raider that helps her produce it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I know at Raider's new office, close with Chris Raider, he does a lot of stuff with our nonprofit. They're building a podcast studio over there, and so
Why not?
Yeah, right, and right where the old Piccadilly used to be, I think off Coolidge, and yeah, so I know he's helped her throughout the time, and I think the master plan is to have that studio where her and other people can go and whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of all the details, but I would like to talk with like Raider and other people who are trying to build podcast studios and create like AcadianaCasts like satellite locations where we don't always have to come to the studio that I built. We can have multiple different locations that fit your needs and whatnot. Ultimately, the ultimate plan though is to have like a brick and mortar content creation studio in like downtown Lafayette, where if you just want to make like a green screen like YouTube video or TikTok or whatever, or if you want to make a full podcast, if you want to have like one with like multiple different mics, different people and whatnot, I have like capabilities to do that. If you want like more of like an interview, like traditional news kind of setting, I just want to have a large space where I have different little studios in there. But that's definitely down the road, and we need people like you guys to subscribe and like so we can get some sponsor dollars and build this thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely love the fact that you want to do that. If I had, I guess, money just kind of sitting around not doing anything, I'd love to like build like a studio that has, like you said, multiple different versions of a studio. And I don't know what that would look like as far as layout goes, but have different backdrops or the ability to change out a backdrop on the fly. I think that'd be really cool. And in downtown, there's a space. I think it might have become available recently. Was the studio, the selfie studio, the selfie? Was it
on Jefferson?
God, yes. The name was Exposure, I believe.
I know that. Were there a couple of them?
There was one in downtown.
Okay.
There's a couple around Lafayette, and it became like a super trendy thing for like a year or two, and I think it's like the trend's starting to kind of waver. But anyway, I think that space might be available, and I think that'd be a great space.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely when we get to that point, I definitely will talk to you because you have all the ins and outs of developments and who's open and who's not. And
well, I have a couple of other things that are floating around in my head of other people looking for space too.
Yeah.
And so I just thought about that space. So I might have to like tell them about it too. Either way, there's tons of spaces.
Take that. We're ways away from that.
Yeah. So the starting point though is the fact that you guys have your Facebook page that you're helping promote the podcast that you have under the belt, and then also any of the new ones that you get. It's going to be a kind of a marketing engine, so to speak, for these podcasts.
Right.
And there's podcast networks out there. There's others. I mean, you probably have listened to a few podcasts before. I think there's a network called Wondery.
There's Wondery.
Rumble. I think
there's
it's
Rumble
or Ramble. I think it's Ramble.
Right, but then you also have Barstool Sports. You have the Locked On Network for whatever like sports team you like. There's a UL. I don't think it has one, but like LSU, the Saints, Pelicans. They each of them have their own Locked On show, and it's like 30 minutes of like every single day updates on your favorite team. But this is kind of like from my knowledge, the first community-based podcast network in Louisiana. So I like holding that claim, and hopefully we can be the only ones and kind of control the market on that for a while. But I just felt like it was something that this community needed, and I needed personally. Like I said, I wanted to have my own voice, and I wanted to bring that to other people.
Okay, so now I want to know something before we go because we're at about 44 minutes, and I have every Friday I have a lunch date, and usually it's around 12:30 ish. So before we go, I want to ask you, what is some of your favorite podcasts to listen to either while driving or if you watch a podcast? Because some people would rather listen to it while they're driving because it's kind of one of those times where you're not doing anything with your hands. Hopefully you're keeping it on the wheel. and your ears are just open to
Right.
either road noise, music, or a
Yeah.
podcast.
Well-
So like, what is your preferred method, and which podcast do you like?
Well, so I mean that's what makes podcasts so great. Just from an audio standpoint, more so than even radio. You know, you can listen to it anywhere. It's the most accessible medium
At any time.
At any time,
Yeah.
it's the most accessible medium that's out there. And so what I'll do often is I'll be listening to a podcast, and oftentimes most of the ones that I listen to, they have like a YouTube as well. And so I'll listen to it, and then I get home, and instead of continue to listen to it, I'll just skip on YouTube to where I left off while I'm eating dinner or whatever, and just see how they're doing it. And that's also kind of like a little research on my part, just how other people are doing it.
Yeah.
But I mentioned earlier, I've listened to Joe Rogan for several years. It's been crazy to see
Do
how.
you listen to the entire podcast of Joe Rogan?
Oftentimes, yes.
God.
Yeah, I mean, it takes me several hours, but you know, it could be like right when I wake up, I put it on. By the time I get to work, I'm at about an hour in. If I go take a lunch break, I'll get in my car. I'll another like 20 minutes there.
Yeah.
And then while I work out, I'll also listen to podcasts, which my roommate thinks I'm a sociopath for doing so. It's like, you need to listen to music, dude. What are you doing? How do you get pumped up by listening to like politics or jokes?
But you know, I get what you're doing, because there are times where I get into I need to listen to podcast kind of mode, because I'm thinking about making a change
Mhm.
to my format, or I want to adjust my audio levels, and I want to see what other podcasts sound like,
Right.
and compare it. And also, watching a video podcast is really different than an audio, because you have a lot more stimulation as far as the senses go. You hear it, you see it,
Mhm.
and reading body language is
Yeah,
different.
yeah,
You
for
can't
sure.
see that on audio. And so like, I love watching all of that just to kind of get an idea of like, should I be doing something, or am I doing something that's, causing people not to watch or listen longer?
Mhm.
And so some of those things are like, like an intro to, like, with a video or music in the beginning, and like where to read your ads and how to read them, and like how long to read them. Like the other day, I found out that I was reading the 2 ads that I have for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm like, I don't know if that's too long or not.
Right.
I feel
Yeah.
because Joe Rogan, at the beginning of his episode, it's like an hour of like sponsored.
Well, he doesn't do that anymore now that he has a Spotify deal. Now they're now they'll just like cut in the episode of just like an ad that's pre-read, and it'll just like drop in at some point. I think that's
So it's not even him, or is it?
no,
him
it's him.
reading?
It's him.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not him. Sometimes it's it's some voiceover of another company.
I guess if they're paying enough.
Yeah, right. I mean, like it's not already. It's like $100 million contract that he signed with Spotify. But to continue answering your question, yeah, I've listened to a lot of Rogan. I just like how he's empathetic and just gives everyone a chance to put out their perspective and whatnot. And he's a good listener. And I've learned a lot of good interview technique from him. I've mostly listened to one of 3 genres: either comedy, sports, or news. For news, I listen to Burning Points. It's 2 diametrically politically opposed people, but
Kind of like Scotty and
right,
Manny.
but they're nice to each other and
Okay.
polite, and
They haven't
and-
blocked
and-
each other
Yeah,
yet.
no, and there is, you can tell there is no bias coming from it from a news perspective, and they're really just presenting the news or the facts, and then they kind of expound upon it, kind of like a nicer version of what was that show back in the day with Tucker versus someone else. I think it might have been on CNN.
God.
Can't remember the name of the show, but I think James Carville maybe was the other guy, and they go back and forth or whatever. But that's just barking on cable television. It's sports. I listen to Part of My Take, probably the number one sports, and I guess sports and comedy, but I like their perspective, because it's just like the regular guy at a bar watching a game, and instead of like a button-up guy in a suit talking about sports, like they know like they're big meatheads, and so it's kind of fun to have like those conversations. They're really funny and have good guests. And then like a bunch of comedy podcasts. I love stand-up comedy, and I think that's the number one genre in podcasting is comedy, because they're natural talkers, they're funny, they're entertaining, and
I mean, that and true crime has to be the
Yeah.
highest.
yeah, but I think those are, if not 1 and 2, like 1, 2, 1 and 3.
Yeah.
Or sports. Yeah, sports is always up there. But let's see. like I said, Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast. We Might Be Drunk with Mark Norman and Sam Morrell. Mark is a comedian from New Orleans. He came did at the Club 337 with Lafayette Comedy. He did a show. But yeah, those are just some of the shows I listen to.
Yeah,
and some like the local sports guys when it comes to like Saints and Pelicans and stuff like that.
man. So your choice of podcast is a little bit more less boring, I guess, than my picks. I like.
What do you listen, NPR?
Yeah, actually, I was about to say Guy Raz, How I Built This. I love listening to founders and just how they build companies. Like one of my favorite episodes from How I Built This was the Squarespace founder. I forget his name, but he was talking about how he wanted to build a place where people can build websites super simply, and there was no fuss, and how he started out with a single server that was just stationed in New York City or the New York area. And there was a moment in time when he was traveling and it was late at night, and all of a sudden he got messages that some of his customers' websites were down. And so he looked at the server data and it was showing that it was offline. And so the only way that he could get the websites for his customers back up is he had to drive to the server location to restart it. I mean, and he had probably several hundred customers, maybe even thousands at that point, surviving on that one server, and it was down, and he had to go flip a switch physically. And nowadays, you don't have to worry about that, like with Amazon Web Services and all that.
Yeah.
And just
hosting.
But like if you're a enterprise, you need your own data usually, or you can just use Amazon's and figure that out. But
is NPR the original ASMR?
Probably.
I mean, like all of their shows are just like this, and they're talking just real nice and quiet and really nice for your ears. It's just really a nice, subtle way of speaking.
I know, and then as long as they don't do this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Scrolling through TikTok, and there's some girl with like a little like nightlight, and she's just like, yeah, like this. Shh. I'm like, oh, no, you creep me out. Now I'm less sleepy.
Hey, you know what? We might need to start an ASMR podcast.
Acadiana SMR.
Oh, Lord. I don't know where that'll go, but yeah, so Guy Raz, How I Built This, and then there's a couple that my wife and I will watch on YouTube. So Shane Dawson, I don't know if you know who Shane Dawson is.
The name sounds familiar.
So he started out as a YouTuber. He made some waves, got canceled a couple times, and he started a podcast beginning of, or kind of like early summer-ish, where it's him, I don't think it's his husband. I think it's his boyfriend, and then they have a camera guy that they hire because they make enough money on their YouTube videos. He has like several, I want to say over 20, close to 30 million. So it's in between 20 and 30 million subscribers. So he has a full-time, or at least looks like full-time video guy that basically videos everything they do, and they work the podcast, and then it's also Shane Dawson's brother, so it's 4 people, and it's really entertaining. I mean, the stuff they talk about is, some of it's like pop culture, some of it's current events, stuff like that, and they put their own spin on it, and they have like little segments that they've created for each of them, and one of the segments is something about being cheap, like cheap tricks with Shane Dawson's brother, and they have like a little jingle that they got off of Fiverr for each of them, and the cheap tricks is basically like how to save money doing this. So like, for example, it may be like this fast food restaurant has like this off menu thing, or this way that you can build a meal without having to pay like the full meal price. So like he'll do like that, and it's just really cool, and I love watching that. And then of course there's according to this guy Logan Paul, the greatest podcast in the world, or the most popular, or whatever Scotty does the same thing.
Yeah.
Scotty's like the number one podcast in the world, according to himself.
Yeah, it's his facts only. I think he changed his tagline though. It's a little different now with a little more sultry language.
Yeah, I mean, and Scotty started off pretty raw. Like it was in his living room. It looked like.
Yeah, he was just basically like rocking an iPhone and just like a mic into maybe his computer.
Yeah, and it was USB mics. It looked like that he was using, or like in more less expensive mics.
Yeah, no. If you're wondering what AcadianaCasts can do for you, go just even if you don't like his content, although just stick around, you might learn something about yourself or him or.
Yeah, right.
But if you go watch like his first episode, it's compared to where he is now, and with the production upgrades that we've given him, and he's Scotty was a fraternity brother, so I feel like I have the ability to just naturally rag him and not feel bad about it.
Yeah, you know what? But that's what bros do. So let me pull up the website again, just so that we can close out. So you guys, you can go to. I'm gonna put the website name also up. So it's AcadianaCast. That's with an S. AcadianaCasts.
Plural.
.com. Go to the website, check it out, and you can browse through the navigation. You can see the podcast sponsors. You can also see how to create your podcast, and just kind of gives you a short little description of things you would need to do.
Yeah, and down the road, like we're going to be sending some serious updates into the website as far as like bios on the podcasters, information of like where to find them. We'll have probably some sections for like high sponsors where you can go directly to their business, and so yeah, like I think the way you said it, it's kind of like a giant marketing machine via podcasting.
Right. So yeah, just I'm thumbing through the different pages now. And also, if you want to learn more about the podcast that they have, the partners, so you can go to the podcast partners page, and under each title, you'll see a little description, and you also see some buttons. You'll see their website, their Spotify, their Apple link, and depending on what they have, that may vary. So the Art of Business, you'll have the website, Spotify, and I saw Amazon Music, so I used that. And then the Unwoken, same thing, website, Spotify. And I think the website is his YouTube. So if you click that, no, actually it's his Buzzsprout.
Right.
So forgive me. But yeah, you can you can find him on YouTube. I think I probably need to add the YouTube link on there.
Yeah. Go ahead and do that when you get a chance. But yeah, we're the rest of the shows are going to start doing more YouTube content very soon. It seems like that's kind of the future. Like, yeah, it's nice to have like the accessibility of like just audio, but people do want to see. People love YouTube. They want to see.
Yeah, and they like to see faces and just the body language. And there's when a joke is said, when you can watch somebody make a joke that's actually good, like a good solid joke, not like a dad joke like I love to make. Reading the body language and just the way they deliver it visually sometimes is more funnier than hearing it. Like it just changes it.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, yeah, you can go to their YouTube. I'll actually pull up Scotty's YouTube because I was actually impressed with it. Forgive me if you're seeing my recommendeds. Thankfully, there's nothing bad there. It all looks good.
Car washes versus storage.
So
cold storage.
I think it's I'm gonna just type in Unwoken. I've never looked up his YouTube channel like straight up out of the search bar. So let's just see Unwoken. Boom, there it is. Unwoken, and it's all like capital U, lowercase n, capital W, lowercase O.
I think I haven't talked to him about this, but I think he was going after like that SpongeBob meme where it's like Unwoken.
Oh God, yes. Okay, so he has right now on YouTube 1,620 subscribers, which is pretty decent, especially starting out locally.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was actually really impressed. Not to give this Scotty too many kudos.
Yeah, he's got a big head enough.
I know. Let me not air it up too much, but just looking at some of the most recent videos, he is definitely hitting on the. I don't know if it's the buzzwords, if it's the SEO is working for him at this point, because one of the videos has 2.4 thousand, and the most recent one 4 days ago, 3.8 thousand views. Is vaping bad for you? Is one of the titles of the video, and that was 4.5 thousand views. That was 4 months ago. And then there was one that I spotted.
I think there's one that has over 7,000.
Correct. I was trying to find.
That was Connor Toops, former baseball player from UL. They get into a really interesting conversation about the NCAA and some other stuff that you'll have to listen to really get.
Yeah, I'm not sure where there's so many different videos and like so many different numbers, so I'm struggling to find it. but it's definitely on there. So if you want to check out the Unwoken podcast, it's there. You go.
But yeah, so yeah, as long as you're not advocating for violence or actively slandering people without any sort of like
Correct,
evidence
yeah,
at all,
yeah.
You got free reign on AcadianaCasts. You're uncancelable, I would say.
Uncancelable. I that's hard to say, but I like it. All right,
We're gonna try.
Yeah. So is there anything that we didn't cover that we should have?
No, I would just say, look, like whether you are an individual, friends, or a business, podcasting can be a great way to a good marketing strategy. If you're just someone who just like wants feels like, hey, this topic is not being talked about. We need to have someone covering this regularly. You know, come our way. We'll make it happen.
Alrighty. Well,
and go listen, please.
Yeah,
we definitely need listeners. Go follow us on Facebook, AcadianaCasts Network. We got an Instagram as well, LinkedIn. We're gonna start doing some really like kind of business engagement on LinkedIn really soon. A lot of plans up the sleeve, and you know, whenever you start a business, and you probably know this, like you want to do everything all at once and just have it ready. But you know, you gotta eat it for a little bit, and just take one day at a time, and just continue to do something positive each and every day. And I think down the road, I think this will be a valuable asset to Acadiana. I really do.
Yeah, I believe so too. Carter, it was great to have you on.
Appreciate you having me, man. It's nice being on this side of the mic between news, being a reporter, a journalist, and then doing all the podcasts and interviewing people. It's nice. It's nice. What does Carter want? What's Carter like?
Yeah, what does Carter need? Yeah, you know, and I mean, it is a struggle sometimes to be on this side of the mic, where because I live cut everything. Like I'm switching. And I'm the only guy in the room like that's switching and trying to keep up a conversation. So I'm having to learn how to like do dual purpose and also making sure that everything's running live and that
Like for my show, I have a couple of different people who have. I think Hannah's actually ran a show before, but they'll run the audio board and the video board as well. So I can just focus on the conversation.
Yeah, focus on that conversation because I found myself before watching how many people were listening or watching, and then I had a thought in my head, and then as soon as I saw the number, like
gone,
like let's say the number dropped, like viewers dropped for a second. All of a sudden, I was like thinking about that, and then I forgot what I was gonna say. Like, and so on live, I've been you've actually seen me. I'm like, well, that thought just fleeted. I'm like, I don't even know what I was gonna say.
So we didn't get any questions.
No, we did get somebody that tagged somebody. So
okay, yeah. There we go. Getting up there. Go follow AcadianaCasts.
You know, but we
support the team.
We kept a good few viewers, and thankfully this live video stays on Facebook for indefinitely, as long as Facebook lives on, however long that lasts.
Well, we'll definitely promote the hell of it.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, thank you for listening and watching. And Carter, again, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Go check us out on the audio version if you get a chance. And yeah, that is the